This is Rebecca Lowe, or Rebecca Lua, if you listen to Suboptimal Radio, and you are listening to Men in Blazers on the NBC Sports Network.
It's unbelievable!
From the Embassy Road studios in the crap part of Soho, it's in the crap part of West Hollywood, Rog. It's the Men in Blazers podcast.
Oh, Davo, you live. You live.
I had a near-death experience less than 2 hours ago, Rog.
Don't leave me hanging. Did you live or did you die?
Oh, no, I'm still alive. This is me. I'm in a fairly blissed-out state because I've dodged death.
Yeah.
But this is me in the flesh, alive.
When we spoke before the pod, you told me you had a near-death experience and I asked you to describe it and you said, no, save it for the pod. So I actually do not know how you had a near-death experience. I'm imagining mafia hitmen.
Yeah.
I'm imagining East End gangsters who've come to get their money back. And I'm also imagining faceless men, assassins that you don't see coming, Davo, and you only know they've got you when you're dead. Which one of those three was it?
No, it was a car accident. I was sideswiped at high speed on Melrose Avenue this morning. It is the worst car accident I've ever been involved in my life. I should say, in full disclosure, we have a great relationship with Mini Cooper, with Mini USA, and we do a lot of work for them. But this is not a product plug. This is just a miracle happened to me in my John Cooper Works Mini this morning. Driving along Melrose, I don't know what happened. Some guy in front of me peeked out. He was trying to come. I didn't see him coming. He was behind the car and he peeked out into my lane as he was trying to make a left turn from the left to go and get out ahead of me. I was right in the middle of an intersection. I saw him coming. I swerved, or I zipped. I was motoring. I motored to the right. He clipped, just a clip, my back left side, my back left tire, my big bottom back left. I went into a full-on skid. I turned that little race car, turned it against the skid exactly as you taught. It sent me into a 180, Rog, at high speed, across into the other side of the traffic, into the oncoming traffic, where there are 2 lanes of traffic coming through the intersection at speed. I literally slipped by feet, maybe inches, between 2 speeding cars, one in the first lane, one in the second lane, and a car screeched to a halt, coming right into the back of me. And I ended up 180 degrees facing the other way in incoming traffic.
And you did all your own stunts?
I did all my own stunts. I was like Statham in The Transporter. It was a perfect 180, executed almost like a parallel park into oncoming traffic. And I walked away with a little bit of damage to my left rear tyre and a back light, but not a scratch. And the other guy wasn't hurt either. It was just a miracle.
Can I just say, Ernest Hemingway says that the greatest thrill a man can have is to be shot at and missed.
Yeah. This was like that.
How is your life different now? What resolutions have you vowed? Have you seen the light with Chelsea? Have you made vows to yourself, like Cat Stevens, swimming out to sea? If only you'll save me, God, I'll devote my life. Have you made vows, Davo? Have you changed your life in the past 2 hours?
Football doesn't matter, Rog, but I felt that way before.
It never did, Davo.
I thought it never did. I don't know. I don't think there's any new me. We might see, unfortunately, my LA employees might see it differently later in the day. Rog, that's right. You all went through my mind. I thought, this could be the end of Men in Blazers. Temporarily, until you find somebody else. I just honestly thought it was going to be the end. What, with BlazerCon coming up? It would have been terrible timing.
It would have been, I'd say, if you died, God, it would have been really inconvenient for me today.
It would have affected your day.
It would have been annoying. It would have been irritating. It would have been selfish on your part. And it would have cast me into the same despondent bit of hell as when Dan Aykroyd lost John Belushi. I'd have a future where I just have to repeat the Conehead gag on insurance commercials.
So my first thought, if you'd be thinking, Dave will do anything to get out of talking about Chelsea's loss to Southampton. And yet I don't care anymore, Rog. I just don't care. I'm alive. I'm here.
Was there a bright side? Did you get to meet California Highway Patrol officers John Baker and Ponch Poncherello?
I'll tell you what the bright side was. After sort of gathering myself and putting the car into a safe position by the side of the road, I crossed the street to go and talk to this guy who was driving a rental car and, to go and sort of have that encounter after this moment where I honestly think he thought that he'd killed me, like when it happened. And we had the most lovely exchange, only in America. Neither of us was completely sure what happened. Neither of us completely sure whose fault this was, or if there was any fault. It just happened. These are high-speed, steel and glass and rubber, like driving down the street. It's amazing to me that this doesn't happen more often. And it was such a lovely exchange. He was such a lovely human being. We exchanged our information and we got on with our days. And he was great. And I couldn't imagine that happening in any other country in the world, Rog.
I will say, Davo, I am giddy that you live and breathe. Were you to expire, I would get your face tattooed onto my left forearm.
What would be your first steps? On hearing that I'd passed in a terrible car accident in the early morning of West Hollywood, what would be your first moves?
Probably to clear out your drinks cabinet.
Yeah. Certainly at the Johnny Walker.
And then in my misery, in my sorrow, in my unconsolable grief, I'd probably launch a competition where I'd offer GFOPs a blazer patch to suggest who should replace him.
A spotter's patch. Yeah, great.
And I'd on the Facebook post or whatever, the Instagram post that Lexi posts, we'd put on the bottom, we just put hashtag, it's what Davo would have wanted.
I like Josh Darnell. He would do well. You have chemistry.
Oh, I couldn't keep my hands off him, though. Couldn't keep my hands off him, Davo.
You and Guy Ritchie, you could do the whole show in Yiddish. It would be amazing.
Talking about Yiddish, you're back in England this week.
Oh, I'm back.
You've survived death twice this week, Davo.
Yeah, I survived Buffalo with you, then Toronto, flew to England, drove in the middle of the night down to Devon. Brodge, Devon. How do you describe Devon? It's sort of a county in the extreme southwest of England. Only Cornwall is more remote.
I think about it as if God had a garden.
It really is. Bill Bryson, a brilliant American writer who's lived in England for several years, in his new book, The Road to Little Dribbling, Rog, More Notes from a Small Island, he describes the English countryside thusly. There isn't a landscape in the world that is more artfully worked, more lovely to behold, more comfortable to be in than the countryside of Great Britain. It is the world's largest park, its most perfect accidental garden. I think it may be the British nation's most glorious achievement. I think that's true, Rog. We didn't really achieve it. It was just there when we got there.
I'm going back to a different part of England after we finish poddy.
Where are you off to?
I'm about to go to Blackpool.
Oh, good golf courses near Blackpool. Lytham, right there. Rog. Old St Anne.
Yeah, but Blackpool itself, it's akin to stepping back into the 1980s.
It's like England's Atlantic City.
I particularly can't wait to get up at 2:30 a.m. on Sunday morning to watch the USA beat Mexico. It's going to put me in a right proper mood. But we were in a right proper city this week together. An amazing experience. It feels like an age ago. We were in Buffalo. What a city.
Buffalo. Lovely town. Place I've really fallen in love with. I really adore that place.
I love being there. Thomas Hardy novels. They always have the weather reflect the inner turmoil of the lead character. Buffalo was rainy, grey and dour, which fits me perfectly. I felt a buzz walking the streets.
Just on behalf of the tourist office of Buffalo, it's not always like that, Roger. It just was like that while we were there.
Oh, that's what I liked about it. I also loved that I was walking the streets where Marv Levy and Rob Ray had walked before me. But there's an incredible upswing in that city that's impossible to ignore.
Coming back. Buffalo is coming back, Roger. There's no doubt about it. The wings, the food. The food everywhere is great. The people are just unmatched. Of course, I'm biased with partners from Buffalo, but I love that city. And the GFOPs who came out to Masqué to meet us when we were there, thank you so much. We were touched by all of you and your kids and your babies. We just love meeting you all up there.
We had a night at an amazing bar, Mesquite. It was such a young, committed, passionate football culture that's there. So many Arsenal and City fans, huge number of West Ham fans, but I couldn't really tell if it was just the same three coming up to meet us over and over and over again. One of the guys we met, a guy called Jeff Marion, told us that being into soccer in Buffalo is like being into Nirvana when Bleach came out, which kind of captured the vibe of the place. But we also love being with the Bills, the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. What an energy around that team. Huge number of soccer fans there. All the players are FIFA obsessives. The coaching staff love the game.
Yeah, the equipment guys have a Champions League, pool that they play in every single week.
I mean, I'm also fascinated by the brand of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, William is the 5th most popular name in America. And I believe if the Bills made an earnest effort to market themselves to every man named Bill in the United States of America, they could just eclipse the Cowboys and become America's true team. You know, Bill Murray, Bill Bradley, Bill Withers, Bill Maher, Parcells, maybe even Belichick.
You know, my brother is a William, a Will, and he was never Bill in Britain. Because we don't really do Bills very often in Britain, Billobby, but not many. When he came to the United States when he was 18, when my brother went to the Mercersburg Academy, years before myself or Rebecca Lure, he came back and suddenly William had become Bill. And Bill was a far more exciting person than William, Roger. Way more exciting. He wore cut-off denim shorts and his hair had all bleached blonde, and he wore American football shirts. He had a broad American accent.
What is he now? What is he now?
What?
Has he gone back to William?
He oscillates. He's a Will and he's a Bill. Depends which group of friends are talking to him.
I'd much prefer to have a drink with Bill, given the choice out of those three, David.
Bill. Such a good name. Okay, Rog. Diego Costa's birthday today, 27 years old. Happy birthday, Diego. Hope you're having a wonderful little party somewhere with tea and cake and jelly.
Yeah, it's also National Kale Day, so I'm sure there's a connection between those two things.
The two are very, very much.
You think Diego
related.
Costa, you often think kale, word association.
Yeah. BlazerCon, Rog, November 13th, 14th, New York City, Brooklyn. We've got another big guest announcement. Everton manager. How did that happen, Rod? Mr. Roberto Martinez. He's going to join World Cup champions Becky Sauber and Ali Krieger and Heather O'Reilly, who will talk about the future of the women's game with Fox Sports 1. And Embassy Road's own Katie Nolan, Rod, is going to be doing that panel. We'll also have Premier League head honcho Richard Scudamore and the leaders of Southampton, Manchester City, Liverpool and Bournemouth football clubs.
I've got to say, I'm so honoured Roberto Martinez is going to be joining us. I'm so proud to be able to host him and his family at such a key time in the club's fortune. It's going to be an amazing, magical session. I cannot wait for all blue GFOPs who will join us. Yeah, there will be beer, there will be pie, there will be a special tailor to sew on blazer patches, Rod. Tickets to BlazerCon, November 13th and 14th in Brooklyn, are available on our website, meninblazers.com. Okay, Rog, we've got a packed show. We're going to break down Arsenal's dismantling of league leaders Manchester United at the Emirates. We pour a sip out for sock ties, false teeth, and chaplets everywhere as we bid farewell to the Brodge. What a weekend, Rog. So much happened. And we'll discuss Man City's Sergio Aguero hanging 5 goals on a hapless Newcastle. Plus, we're joined by Sunderland's starting right back, a man whose name will be on the lips of every USMNT national team fan this Saturday night when the Bomb Trap do battle with Mexico at the Rose Bowl, Mr. DeAndre Yedlin. To the football, Rog. To the football. What are you cracking open there, Rog? Did you notice the sound of the difference there? It was a different sound. It is a Guinness Nitro IPA. This is my first one. It's actually not my first one. I've been drinking them all morning. It is a new Guinness IPA. They say they use 5 different kinds of hops in this. I've got to say, it's a lot of hops. It's a bloody lot of hops. And it tastes a fall, David. I've got to say, it does. If corduroy had a taste, that's what Nitro IPA would taste like. David, I've got to say, as a toast to football, this was a weekend that was crazier than Joe Hart in a tunnel. So many firings, so many Kun Aguero strikes, so many shock Arsene Wenger victories. Not enough Chelsea losses, but I'll take whatever I can get. Is it possible for there to be too much narrative in the English Premier League? I mean, Chelsea being battered was like the 5th most interesting thing about this weekend. I know. Maybe not even 5th. It was like a Harry Kane own goal, like everything going on. It was barely believable, the plot twists, the happenings that were going on. It's actually got us wondering, have the scriptwriters stretched the boundary from based on a true story to flat-out fantasy? It's like there has been too much suspension. Honestly, my mates I was playing golf with in the UK, all enormous football fans, many of them of Tottenham, which just blows my mind.
they almost feel like there's too much, that football itself is becoming not believable anymore. It's like a drama. It's like Series 3 of Homeland. You just can't believe it anymore. It's like too much is going on. You just can't even stay with it anymore. You just can't believe the characters or the story.
The thing that's fascinating to me, this weekend, this explosion set off all the narrative fireworks at once. I mean, it comes after a Champions League break where if you look at the English games, 8 group games, 5 have ended in defeat, a dismal win rate. Our Giants have been beaten by Dynamo Zagreb and Olympiacos. Yeah. They're like the Cincinnati Reds and Milwaukee Brewers equivalent of European football. And the more I fall in love with the narrative of the Premier League, the more the actual teams are in danger of losing a 4th Champions League spot in 2017-18. They're determined by what are called coefficient rankings, calculated by performance over 5 years. England currently 3rd behind Spain and Germany, but the Italians, the Italians, they're closing in, Davo. Does it undermine our obsession in any way?
I don't think it matters. I think the one thing it does is it must really piss off all these other leagues around the world. Because the English Premier League doesn't even need to be good to be the greatest league in the world. It just has got the best storylines. It's like, is Narcos really the best drama ever written about gangsters and crime and the drug wars? No, not at all. But it's so compelling. It's so good.
What are you saying? The Premier League is the cocaine of football leagues?
Well, maybe the Narcos of football league. It's the unable to resist binge watching mini-series of global football, and nothing else competes. They can all compete, and so all these leagues around the world are trying to compete by having great football. But great football isn't necessarily what makes the Premier League so great. We will see, Rog. Let's charge into that potentially suspended too high narrative headlong. First of all, Arsenal 3, Manchester United 0. Arsene Wenger knocks Louis van Gaal's army off the top of the table. So number one, let's just stop there. Man United were top of the table going into this game, Rog, in considerable style, an amalgam of clever flicks, kaleidoscopic passing, and pure power put Arsenal 3-0 up after just 19 minutes. 2 goals from Alexis Sanchez and 1 from Mesut Ozil. Arsenal ascend to second, just 2 points behind the new leaders, Manchester City.
What a weekend for Arsenal fans. It was less a set of football matches, more a weekend in which their dreams came true. Arsenal won, Chelsea are thrashed, and Harry Kane scores an own goal. My Arsenal mate, Michael Cohen, he told me, with joy and with sadness, he said, this result's been coming for about 10 years.
I met Michael Cohen this week. I was so excited to meet him for the first time, Rog. He's a good-looking man. Slightly menacing, but a good-looking man. I like him.
He's proper terrifying. But ahead of this game, Arsene Wenger admitted his players can be, quote, naive. I mean, this to me was the game in which naive football clicked. You play 100 games, there's going to be about 10 when naive football will click. And when it does, it's such a beautiful thing to behold.
Yeah, is it just naive football? They just came out and went for it in a way that I wish Arsenal played like all the time. If Arsenal had played like that in the first half against Chelsea last week, you know what? We probably wouldn't even be talking about Diego Costa. They would have just stuffed Chelsea. When Arsenal played like this, there is no one in English football who can stay with them. And whatever we say about the dominance of leagues around the world, Arsenal play football that's up there with almost anyone when they play like this.
I mean, the most Arsenal-y thing about it is that it followed the loss to Olympiacos. Before the game, you looked at the poor Arsenal fans and you thought, you poor sods, it must be, wow, Groundhog Day and just failure and failed hope. I mean, I watched them and I think of Charlie Brown kicking the football time and time again when Lucy is holding. And I thought even more painfully for them, this is a season they know when everything in English football could have been up for grabs. But instead, Arsenal just came out and tore at their opponents, league-leading Manchester United, and all at once seemed brittle suddenly appeared just clad in imperious confidence. Theo Walcott from the start, he was like a changed man. I mean, with that beard and shaved head combo, he looks like he's dressed as Tim Howard for Halloween. And then you got Mesut Ozil, talent-soaked, but too often he's like a timid sprite. Suddenly he appeared up for the fight. And in whipped Sanchez with a cheeky Chilean flick that just humiliated David De Gea. I mean, from the beginning, you just knew Arsenal's jerseys had been set to maximum nipple tingle.
Yeah, it's so rare to see so many Arsenal players all clicking at once. I'm not sure we've ever seen Santi Cazorla, Sanchez, Walcott, and Ozil all play that well at the same time.
And before we had a chance to reflect, within a minute, the lead was doubled. Mesut Ozil last time, I think this was the first time he's not just dominated a major game in the constricting cling film of an Arsenal jersey, but also scored. Exquisite finish, and then celebrating with a finger configuration that's German for gangster. And you think, in a season of nightmares, Arsenal were finally playing the football that their dreams are made of.
And in both goals, the finishes were exceptional, Rog, but it was the build-up to both goals. You know, the first move, the move down the right, the interplay between Ozil and Ramsey, back to Ozil for the first goal was beautiful, and the back heel from Sanchez. The second goal, Santi Cazorla breaks it out. The back heel from Sanchez, again, this time proving that he can't only do it when he shoots, he can also do it when he passes. Ends up releasing Walcott down the left flank. Perfect ball into Ozil, and a fantastic finish, as you said. But this beautiful goal that you cannot see any other team in the league actually scoring, Rog.
It was proper Meadowlark Lemon stuff. And United, shell-shocked, dishevelled, disorganised. Bastian Schweinsteiger, 31. Michael Carrick, 34. A curious midfield pairing as it left an enormous Morgan Schneiderlin-sized hole for Arsenal to tear through time and time again. But it wasn't just pace that Arsenal used. They had physicality. Watching Rooney be bumped off the ball by Mesut Ozil, it was almost physics-defying. United playing less like 11 best friends and more like 11 heavy-leg somnambulists who were getting used to the weekend rhythm of Champions League football. Third goal, master blaster.
Yeah, Sanchez beating half of the United team on the inside left of the penalty area, Rog, and just slotting it home. Fantastic goal. 5
goals in his last 2 appearances. Even Arsene Wenger leapt off his bench and jumped into the air like a father at a bar mitzvah doing the hora.
A happy Arsene.
What a triumph for the spirit. At this point, I felt like I wasn't just watching a football game, but that I'd gone through the looking glass and become witness to an Arsene Wenger dream. I think he's only got 2 dreams. This one, where his team play beautiful, sexy football, which is his version of a porno movie. And then the other recurring one, where Arsene finds himself on a beach as an Edith Piaf song blares from a nearby bar and Vanessa Paradis and Catherine Deneuve emerge from the ocean wearing only Arsenal kits, while Serge Gainsbourg pours Arsene an absinthe, lights him a Gauloise, and Audrey Tattoo reads Baudelaire's La Spleen de Paris out loud.
God, it's like you're inside his mind, Rod.
I've been there. I've been to that bar. But even more surprising to me than Arsenal going 3-0 up so quickly was that Arsenal didn't wilt and concede 3 in the second half. United did have their chances.
Yeah, they did have their chances, but I think Man United were just as responsible for that non-wilting. Can we just say, you just mentioned, Carrick, Schweinsteiger in midfield, just looking sort of a little lumbering in central midfield. The decision to play Ashley Young at left back just appeared very, very, very odd to me, Brodge. This is not, I would say, his ideal position. He got completely lost on several occasions during that first half. But they did have chances. Schweinsteiger with a chance in the second half. Martial, a chance that you just would have put money on him putting away.
Yeah, and Arsenal fans delighted by chanting, "You're just a Danny Welbeck," for the rest of the half after that.
You're just a fit Danny Welbeck, is what he is.
3-0. Is this the real life? Is it just fantasy? Who would have foreseen this? It's like, it was honestly like watching a frog being kissed and turning into a prince. Like Rachel Lee Cook shaking down the hair at the end of She's All That. Arsenal fans now have the whole international break, the whole of it, Davo, to dream, perchance to dream. And then they've got 8 eminently winnable league matches. I say eminently. Before they face Manchester City just before Christmas. Can they believe again, Davo? Can they believe again?
Arsenal should be playing like this or close to this every single week. They have so much talent. They have so much attacking ability. Obviously, injuries and keeping their players fit, and especially over the international break, I'm sure the manager is terrified about this. But they have the ability to go and do this. In winter, it's a little tougher to play that football in January and February in England than you can play on a beautiful day in the sort of early fall. But I believe in them. I still think it's their title to lose, Rog.
See, to me, Arsenal are a team who rarely turn a corner before they turn 2 more pretty quickly afterwards. So there's a lot that will go down. I do also think an early exit from the Champions League, which is looking possible, may ultimately hand them a competitive advantage. One of my weekend highlights from an emotional perspective, I watched the Wayne Rooney documentary on BBC that Gary Lineker did. It's going to be on It's going to be on the US TV soon, but I think it'll need some subtitling. Wayne Rooney, God, what a player he was in his early days is the big takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
But the other big thing, Davo, he revealed in this documentary, Wayne Rooney, that his greatest passion in life is to write love poetry to his wife, Colleen.
Wow.
Colleen says to camera, she goes, "We recently went on vacation. I went to bed with me kids, and when I got up the next morning, there was a poem on the side, which was nice." What could such a poem, a Wayne Rooney love poem, look like, David?
Yeah, I wonder.
I mean, Wayne Rooney is a man whom Louis van Gaal and Bastian Schweinsteiger have both recently given interviews that they, quote, simply cannot understand what he says. But I'm beginning to think that maybe he's a bit like President Reagan mastermind on Saturday Night Live when Phil Hartman played Reagan as a moron with the press in public. As soon as the press left the room, he just snapped into like a complete control freak displaying the mental facility of a genius. Maybe Wayne Rooney just pretends to be a bit simple. And privately, he just like pumps out Allen Ginsberg kind of masterpieces.
Maybe he's a man who can only express himself through the medium of poetry.
Maybe the true tragedy is he can only write perfect poems, Wayne Rooney, but he can't show them to anyone. He's got to maintain the facade.
Except for Colleen. Colleen, she loves them. She loves his love poems. Talking of poetry, Rog, Everton won for tragic poetry. Rog, Liverpool won. The 225th meeting between Merseyside rivals will forever be known as the battle that killed off Brodge. Liverpool took the lead in the 41st minute to a header from England's Danny Ings. Everton equalised just 5 minutes later when Romelu Lukaku, Rog, good season, put a botched Emre Can clearance past Simon Mignolet. An hour after the final whistle blew, the Brodge was no more.
Oh, yeah, poetry. I'll say ballads will be written about the Brodge's time at Liverpool in centuries to come. But before we get to the Brodge, the game, the derby, I'll say the sense of doom, the self-loathing, the fear I wake up with on Derby Day is so overwhelming. I don't know if you ever feel this. It's debilitating.
Never.
The best way I can describe it is to say it's 5% more than normal. Right before kick-off, I feel the same emotions, the exact same emotions I experienced before I lost my virginity last year. This was an even more bizarre game because Everton, they entered with momentum, but momentum counts for nothing in a derby. There was an Everton fan interviewed by the Liverpool Echo the night before the game who captured what I feel exactly. He said, even if Liverpool were in the conference, the lowest level of English football, he said he'd still be afraid to play them, and even though Steven Gerrard is an ocean away playing for another team, he's still dead certain to score the opening goal. This is just a not-in-the-face, fear, fatalism. Everton hadn't won for 9 derbies. And it's a footballing truth. Derbies exist in their own ecosystem that just ignores current form. And that current form, Liverpool limping into the game, the Brodge with a touch of the Stannis Baratheons about him. Game of Thrones, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. He'd burnt his daughter, he'd lost his cavalry, he's bogged down in the snow, but he still believed in the Red God. Could Roberto finish him off? Well, we didn't really find out because the game itself, Davo, bit of a damp squib.
Yeah, it was not a great game. I think both teams seemed a little cautious, a little afraid to concede first. That first goal, the corner comes in from Milner. I think Howard, you think, why does he not come for it? But I think it was right out of the sunlight, Rog. The
goals both came from base defending. Danny Ings was left unmarked at a corner. It was a couple of feet from Tim Howard. It was such a derby goal. Timmy gave up one just like that to Dirk Kuyt in 2010. And in that second, when the ball went in, I honestly thought this game was going to end 1-0. I mean, Everton, makeshift back four, looking incredibly nervy. Liverpool could have already been up 2-0. Sturridge, Shassing, Skirtle heading over from a corner. But then Lukaku equalised right on the stroke of half-time after a moment of chaos in the Liverpool defence, one that had been brewing all day long. He's so strong. When his game is on, Lukaku, and his mind is locked, he's unplayable. So I want to ask you, as a fan of a team that suddenly has to feel Falcao and Loic Remy, what's it feel like to watch Lukaku?
Well, I mean, I think he's playing very well. He also looked fitter and trimmer than he did last season. Look, definitely, while we got a very good price for him and it was a great investment, we simply don't have a striker that's as good as him right now at Chelsea. But I'm not completely convinced by Lukaku yet. I still think he's got a long way to go He hasn't had an amazing Premier League season. What did he have? 7 Premier League goals total last year. We'll see how he does across the whole season. But look, he's better than anybody else we've got.
Second half, unless you're an Everton or Liverpool fan who appreciated every elbow, every trip foul, every dark detail, was fairly forgettable. Liverpool's back three played so deep, their midfield so far away from their defence. All they could do was hoof the ball aimlessly. And for Everton, Lukaku, Jagielka, Barry, Hummers, Murray were excellent, but Mignolet chose a wonderful day to have his best game of the season. The game wound down, Everton tiring, Lukaku exhausted. Gareth Barry was too tired to even foul people properly anymore. And the game we'll remember for the great almost fights, Chan and Barkley, the Lukaku-Saku fight that never was, in which Skrtel did a, quote, good job to calm things down, Martin Skrtel, voice of reason. And then the almost fight, Davo, Naismith versus Martin Skrtel.
That would have been a good one. You could put that on pay-per-view.
I would have loved to have seen that. I'd like to pretend that Stevie Naismith said to Skrtel, you do not want to make an enemy out of Stephen Naismith.
You can't see him coming, Rog.
Yes, Davo, you can't see him coming, and you do not want to make an enemy out of me. I would have taken a draw before kick-off, but not winning this game against a Liverpool side so poor, Davo, it felt pretty damp until shortly after the game, the real action occurred.
Yeah, the weird thing is, it was almost a worse result for Everton than it was for Liverpool being at home for Everton. But it's the Brodge who, it's the final straw for FSG, and they get rid of the Brodge. I'm going to miss him, Rog.
In his last press conference, he talked about a lengthy rebuilding job that would face him or, quote, his successor. This from a man who'd been at a club which had spent $456 million in his 3 and a bit seasons in charge. He was then sacked, leaving behind a team in disarray and just so many magical Brodge memories. Every player I see is my own son. That was my favourite. Just a fantastic quote. And look at Tottenham. If you spend more than £100 million, you expect to be challenging for the league, he said a year before spending over £100 million and finishing 6th. And then, of course, the classic, the great one. I've always said that you can live without water for many days, but you can't live for a second without hope.
It's such a difficult job managing Liverpool, though, Rog. David Conn wrote that brilliant article in The Guardian that we tweeted out. It's almost like you're not managing a football club in 2015, 2016. You're managing, a tradition like no other. You're managing the entire history of the club and the expectations of the fans that are based on that history.
I'll say a word about that in 1 second. I will say he did give the fans, he did give the club a magnificent 2013-14 in which everything seemed possible.
Yeah.
And Liverpool played ecstatic football until Stevie G's tragic, and I mean tragic in an ancient Greek theatrical sense, slip. To sit at the derby at Anfield, January 2014, God, that seems an age ago. The Liverpool of Suarez and Sturridge and Gerrard ran rampant. They won 4-0. I've rarely seen a more cantering performance. Every time Everton had a corner, Liverpool seemed likely to score. But on one hand, Brodge's removal is a signal that the owners FSG want top 4 football. They need top 4 football for that new refurbished Anfield they're building. And that Rodgers had led them close, but the project had turned and was now going stale in reverse, with a team that lacks identity and any kind of reliable core or philosophy. But in Rodgers' defence, he'd lost Luis Suarez, he'd lost Stevie G, he'd lost Raheem Sterling. But you do see teams like Southampton, you see teams like Swansea, who've taken their talent losses on the chin. I think what's terrible now is that Liverpool fans aren't even angry right now. They'd kind of lost hope. Penalties to dispatch Carlisle United, drawing with Swiss Sion in the Europa League and being smashed by Manchester United and West Ham in the league. I met Brendan and I interviewed him at length at the height of his power in 2013-14. And when we did the interview, I always try and connect with my interview subject before we start the interview proper. And I'd watched him train at Melwood all day with the guys. Melwood's the old Liverpool training ground. And I said to him, just as a softball lob, I just said to him, watched your training this morning. It must be amazing for you to train Liverpool Football Club on the same hallowed ground where Paisley, the legendary Bob Paisley, the legendary Bill Shankly trained those guys. And he tapped the microphone and he goes, "Is this microphone on?" And I said, "No, it's not yet." And he goes, "I don't give a crap about those guys. I only care about me." And I thought about that so much afterwards, that he was smart enough to not be caught on tape saying that. So he knew it wasn't a smart thing to say.
Yeah, but he wasn't smart enough to say off the record, so you could never say it on the podcast.
He couldn't help himself, David. He couldn't help himself. And that ultimately is probably the measure. There's something very Bobby Valentine-ish about that gentleman. He cannot help himself. Anyway, if you know enough to ask if the microphone is on, don't say it, is a great rule of life. The spotlight is now firmly back on the US owners FSG, John Henry, Tom Werner, Mike Gordon, none of whom are at this game. I do believe they're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat, which will mollify mortified fans. They've got the whole international break to reset, but that infamous transfer committee with this spotty record trying to buy players under the age of 24 for sell-on value, it's going to be under fierce scrutiny during this process, which means we've got to talk about Jurgen Klopp, David.
What a character, Rog. What a potential, new guest star into the Premier League mini-series.
Yeah, I mean, if for those who don't remember him, he's the man who led Dortmund to 2 Bundesliga titles, a Champions League final. He's reported to have accepted a deal in principle, and reports say he may sign on as early as Friday. He's a madcap bear of a man. My first take, he's another ball denier. He had a hair transplant, and when he was asked by journalists, they ask him anything, the journalists, he goes, "Yes, it's true, I underwent a hair transplant. I think the results are really cool, don't you?" Well, at least he's an honest man. He's a beer-swilling giant. He dispenses bear hugs to his players. His press conferences are just charismatic masterpieces. He's easy to fall in love with. He went on a radio show in Germany, and one of the first callers phoned in and said, "Have you ever watched a porno movie?" To which he just decided, yep, I have. And he started to describe the first one he ever saw as a 16-year-old. He remembered its name. And he said he didn't really remember the plot, but it, quote, got right down to business. He's going to be a real quote, Davo, got right down to business. His time in Dortmund came down to a crashing end when teams worked out how to undo his gegenpressing style, his hard charging, relentless pressing. He's got so much to prove, which will make him great for Liverpool, who do have much to prove. And the yellow wall of Dortmund and the red cop of Anfield, you know he's going to feel right at home. You know he is, David.
Yeah, God, it's going to be so good for our TV show, Rog. It's all I can think. Those post-match press conferences.
The thing I like best about him was pointed out to me by your mate Michael Bloom. Yeah. He said, you do realise one of the best Yiddish sayings is "klop on kop," which means go bang your head. By the way, the man I pity in all of this, Colorado Rockies, draft pick this year, the 3rd overall pick.
Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, a shortstop in their farm system who's been getting so much abuse that he tweeted from @Brod3. He said, Brendan Rodgers, he tweeted out, "I'm not the," in caps, "I'm not the Liverpool manager. I'm not the Liverpool manager." To which GFOP Dodger pitcher Liverpool fan Brandon McCarthy tweeted back brilliantly, "Well, not anymore, you're not."
Very, very good, Rog. Well, I guess we've got to talk about it. Chelsea 1, Southampton 3.
Say it again.
After taking the lead, Chelsea 1, Southampton 3. After taking the lead with a 10th minute Willian free kick. Oh, it's getting boring, Rog. Mourinho's men conceded to Stephen Davis, Sadio Mane and Graziano Pelle to fall at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea now have 8 points from their first 8 games. Well, that should be enough to keep us up, Rog. They sit just outside the relegation zone in 16th place. Nothing to see here. Move on.
Then what can I say? When I interviewed Jose, I asked him, did I interview him or did I curse him, or is that the same thing? I asked him who the opponent he most feared was, and he said Southampton. When he said it, I thought it was a diss of Arsenal and Man City. But watching this game, obviously not.
He was right.
Desperate times.
He was definitely right.
Desperate times, desperate measures. We want our captain back, clamoured the Chelsea fans, and so John Terry was exhumed. I said on the Men in Blazers show, this is like the Red Sox pulling Ted Williams out of his cryogenic chamber to try and save their season.
Yeah, I said John Terry might be a little older.
It all started so well, Davey.
Seen it before. Hazard fouled down the left on one of his mazy little runs. Free kick to Willian, dangerous position. And Willian just puts it straight in from the free kick. Slightly different free kick. He went for the top corner. I know you think he was shooting. A lot of people think he was shooting. There was no one to aim for at that back post. I think he just got fortunate.
They're like penalties for Willian from there. A free kick from there, from that spot. It's like a free throw for the late, great Steve Nash. I'll say to all Premier League goalkeepers, that's what Willian does, all of you. If you've not watched your video, just listen to this podcast. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. The other thing about that goal, Davo, it masks the truth, an amazing truth. So many of those Chelsea's goals this season have been from free kicks from that position. Huge percentage.
Oh, yeah. You're right. The Zuma goal as well. Willian actually shafted one in. He put it off someone's foot. It wasn't a free kick, but from that same position. They should just all assemble at that part of the field and put it in.
At Mark Bosquet tweeted, if it wasn't for Willian and Arsene Wenger, Chelsea would be completely irrelevant this year.
They're just almost irrelevant, Rog. And it's just so odd. This is a team who's been so good at Stamford Bridge for so many years. 1-0 up, first half. You sort of think nothing bad's going to happen. They have had goals scored against them. But then Southampton come up the other end. Just Pele in so much space. Chest the ball down. Fabregas on another weekend. Mini break to Barcelona, no doubt. Stephen Davis just thumps it in.
Yeah, a sense of foreboding had already been building. Begovic had to repeatedly close the gap between the last man and the space they left behind him. That goal can only be described as incredibly Spursy, Davo. Incredibly Spursy. Yeah. And then Southampton came out for that second half like a team who'd only just realised Branislav Ivanovic was wearing a kick-me sign on his back. Tadic teared at him. At one point, Tadic posted up to Ivanovic, and Ivanovic just simply fell over. It was a fantastic moment of athletic. I don't know what. And at the other end, what was shocking about this Chelsea performance was just how unshocking it was to witness them create so little. No guile, no power, very little leadership. How many players did Southampton have who could hurt Chelsea? Tadic, Pele battering hero Gary Cahill, and Mane, so imperious. He just hurt Chelsea.
Everyone.
Yeah, I'll say Mane's transfer price in January going up by multiple millions for every powerhouse run. Southampton wrapped up the game with two bombastic goals, each shocking in their own way. Mane rolling John Terry, captain leader Ragdoll. The other, rapier counter finished by Dapper Dan. Pele. It was like watching the bullies being bullied, Davo, as the Southampton fans chanted, "We are Southampton, we've come from League One." And the best Chelsea fans could do was counter with as Jose Mourinho countered by the immediate shaming and scapegoating substitution of Matic, who the substitute being substituted. I've not seen such a big transformation in a single team since David Moyes inherited Manchester United.
Yeah, I don't know. I was actually looking at sort of American sports franchises who came off great seasons and then had horrible subsequent seasons, like American teams who'd won things. The only thing I could find that was sort of vaguely comparable, I'd love to hear from GFLPs on anything you've seen before, where a team has won a title and been so horrible the next season without losing a major player or without some change in ownership or without some injury. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the year after they went to the Super Bowl, Rod, the year after they won the Super Bowl, that would be the only thing where the sort of the infighting between Gruden and the owner seemed to sort of like pull a big dent on the team and had a very sort of a below-average season the next year. It seems to be the only thing that's comparable. It's just hard to explain what has happened to a team that won the title. It's hard to explain what's happened to a team. Look, since 2004, 2005, when Mourinho arrived at Chelsea, Chelsea have won more titles than anybody else in English football, including the big one, Roger, the Europa League. They've won everything there is for an English team to win. And just so suddenly, for this core of players, who are not particularly old, there are some older players, but there are lots of younger players, to go downhill exponentially, all feeding their lack of confidence off each other, I've just never seen anything like it. And I just don't know how completely to get my mind around it.
No, it's hard to get.
What I like is we're going to see Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and that's the only positive I can really sort of take out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reflection of the fact that the great strength of last season, the small squad, which seems so strategic when you're winning.
Yeah.
But when you're getting battered, you have so few options, so few cards to shuffle. What can you do? Ruben Loftus-Cheek's going to save your season. I find it fascinating watching Mourinho. So recently, the arrogant, the Machiavellian, the puppet master, the maestro supreme. And now watching him on the sideline, it's like watching a self-proclaimed smartest man in the room unable to work out how to do a Rubik's Cube. I mean, watching him harp on about penalties as his excuse for this when Southampton could easily have had 2 before the Falcao claim was rejected. And then being beaten by a team with 2 Chelsea cast-offs in Romeo and Bertrand was kind of salt in the wound. 8 points from 8 games. No team has ever had that record and ended higher than 5th. You're in danger of missing out on the Europa League, Davo. At J. Pryan Law tweeted, curses ranked. Number 1, Curse of the Bambino. Number 2, Curse of the Billy Goat. Number 3, Eva's Revenge. There were reports of a Chelsea club official meeting long into the night Saturday to work out how to fix and right the ship. However, Chelsea's next game is at home to struggling Villa. They've then got a run against West Ham and Liverpool. Jose will have time yet. But we've seen this movie before. Jose comes in, takes the reins year 1. Year 2 propels the team to the top. By year 3, his players are like horses that have been whipped to exhaustion and can give no more.
I mean, look, and you meant to make such a good point about Romeo and Bertrand, young players in Chelsea. Bertrand played in the Champions League final, who you sort of thought would come through and be more than great squad players, have a chance to play first-team football. When you mentioned the slip earlier, do you remember who played in centre-back in that game? Thomas Callis, a young, very, very bright prospect at centre-back. He's been discarded. He's off on loan somewhere. I think he's at Middlesbrough. It's as Chelsea have had these players, had this talent, and they've just been cast off. They haven't had a place to grow within the club. And I think that's got to be the thing, combined with elements of Mourinho's, as you say, using the whip too much and exhausting his players, exhausting their ego, destroying their confidence. And we're in the situation we're in now.
It gets worse for Chelsea. I love saying that. It gets worse for Chelsea. A poll this week revealed Chelsea fans are the least attractive in the Premier League, screams the Daily Mail. Well, Bournemouth fans are the most attractive. I'm sure it's very scientific, this poll. It was conducted by the dating site Match. They quizzed 1,000 fans. Bournemouth topped the table with 58%, saying they'd be happy to date a Cherries fan. Man City came 4th. Bottom of the table, Davo, United and Chelsea. I wonder if they measured inner beauty or the other kind.
I think they just measured, Man United and Chelsea have won more in football than anybody else over the last 11 years, and so I think that's the primary reason. But it does affect brand Chelsea, Roger. It affects brand Chelsea. It's tough to be the evil empire if you're losing the whole time.
Oh, I love it, David. It's not the size of the trophy cabinet, it's the motion of the ocean.
Well, let's go back to the top of the table. Man City 6, Newcastle 1. A case of Sergio Aguero shot and awe, Rod, keeps the Toon winless after 8 games. The Argentine tallied 5 times in the span of just 21 minutes. Lewandowski watches that. It's not that impressive to send City back to the top of the table.
Yeah, Newcastle have never beaten City in the Premier League. They lost the last 5 games by a 17-0 margin, but they opened the game with an optimistically attacking lineup, and it paid off against the companyless defence. Cut City apart at will. Mangala defended with dread. Mitrovic scored. 10 goals conceded now for City in 392 minutes of football without Vincent Kompany. And that goal, it felt like a rubbernecker's delight, Davo.
Yeah.
I loved McLaren's reaction, his little neck wobble. Do you believe in unicorns? But that was the second. He realised you can score a goal too soon. Interesting, it was Mitrovic that said before the game, he said goals, I can't believe he said this when kids read this stuff. He said goals are like drugs. You score one and you want a lot.
Yeah.
So he's heard. So someone told Mitrovic, I'm sure. That was his prescient way of saying that when it comes to goal scoring, Kun Aguero is the equivalent of Gary Boozy.
Newcastle unlucky not to have a second, Rog, when it was incorrectly ruled offside, but they could have scored 5 and it wouldn't have mattered, Rog, because of the show that Sergio Aguero put on.
He went on the rampage. He scored so many, so quickly, that he even caused Manuel Pellegrini to jump off the bench and display a human pulse, albeit for 1 minute. I say few teams wilt as hard and as fast as Newcastle United. And that's all they did in English parlance. They just adopted the position. Kun Aguero got all the press, but David Silva, I should say, was imperious. The way he minds space and understands passing options, the way he mentally exhausts his opponents. He's like Levin. Without him, City are just good. With him, they're as sharp as Valerian steel. And that was their 3 points. More crucially, a confident, lethal, able Kun Aguero again. When he was subbed off, having scored 5 goals after 65 minutes, it was like the closest the English Premier League will get to a Little League mercy rule. At Adam Beat said it was like watching Kobe not play the fourth quarter when he'd scored 81 points on Toronto. Newcastle have won once in 19 games. That is half an entire season, 1 victory. They're not the worst team in the North East.
Yeah, absolutely, Rog. Sunderland 2, West Ham 2, Black Cats boss Dick Advocat bids farewell to Wearside after his team capitulates a 2-goal lead. A bright spot for Sunderland. The aforementioned DeAndre Yedlin, who you're going to be interviewing later on, Rog, put in a very solid 90 minutes at right back.
It's hard to describe the centrality of football in the North East, David. Just how massive this team is in the city of Sunderland. And how Groundhog Day their mismanagement's been under American Ellis Short. He's kind of like, as an owner, he's like the Dan Schneider with a less blatantly racist team name, I'd say. It's just been a revolving door of players, mostly Manchester United rejects, managers coming in as saviour mid-season, only to be spat out early in the next campaign. There was amazing theatre to this game. DeAndre made his full Premier League debut. He was fantastic. He looks a little chunkier. Looks like he's been working on the weights. But his pace was still a thrill. He just, with him charging up and down, I'd say it's the DeAndre Yedlin effect. Sunderland went 2-0 up, charging forward. If you started a drinking game where you took a shot every time DeAndre Yedlin blazed down the flank only to be ignored by his teammates, you would have been hammered by about the 20th minute. But they went 2-0 up, a wonder goal from Lens. And there was a lovely minute. The cameras panned to Dick Advocat on the bench. And his eyes started tearing up, Davo. A grown man, a manager, tearing up on a Premier League bench. It was beautiful.
Except, why was he crying when he was 2-0 up?
Probably because he was realising that if his team won, he'd have to keep living in Sunderland. Or it could have been that he'd realised too late that he'd finally worked out how to make this team play beautiful football. Either way, we know there's no crying in baseball. West Ham come back to claw a tie, and Dick was gone. 3 wins from 17 games, lowest win percentage for a Dutch Premier League manager ever. His wife didn't want him to return this season, and the moral is of this story, always
listen to your wife.
Yeah, it's the moral of almost every story that I hear, Davo. Good news, the rumoured next manager list, Big Sam might be back, Nigel Pearson, Sean Dyche.
Wow.
Thank you, Premier League writers, thank you. Who would want the job, though, after seeing what a buzzsaw it's been for Steve Bruce, Martin O'Neill, Paolo, Di Canio and Gus Poyet? Who would want that job?
Certainly not Brendan Rodgers.
Well, you keep joking about it.
Text messages. He keeps on checking his text messages to see if they haven't called.
The
one job I definitely don't want. The one job I don't want. I don't want to hear from Sunderland. Did they call yet?
Yeah. Have Sunderland called? I don't want that job. I don't care they've not called, but tell me if they call. I'll tell you who is rumoured interested in the job, Bob Bradley. I mean,
wow.
Sunderland is a coach killer, but Bob has coached through a revolution in Egypt. He's performed financial miracles at Stuybeck. He's more than up to the task. He's earned his chance. No one deserves it more. And though many people, when we tweeted it out, said they would not wish the Sunderland job on anyone, I do hope Bob gets his chance in the top flight soon, though I think he should hold out for the Chelsea job. One English paper's got a headline this morning, "What is a Bob Bradley?" How can you not know who Bob Bradley is? God, he's a gorgeous man.
Ignorant. Swansea 2, Tottenham 2. A Christian Eriksen break sends Spurs unbeaten streak to 7. Harry Kane also scored for Spurs, Rod, unfortunately. It was into his own net, Tottenham, in 8th place with 13 points.
My favourite headline of the week, Pochettino made us break arrows with our throats, reveal Southampton players in a bizarre bonding exercise. Sounds fantastic. However much pain they felt when they were doing that, it was nothing compared to Harry Kane. Scored second week on the run. Beautiful flick into his own net. Last season, he was Real Madrid's Harry Kane. He's kind of more like Real Salt Lake's Harry Kane right now, Dave. His own goal of own goals. Premier League writers, they are so cruel. Turning him really into, we've talked about here, he's the English Premier League Carrie Matheson, Dave. That kind of agony, that kind of face, those kind of tears.
Another great Premier League story from this season, Rog. Crystal Palace 2, West Brom 0. Second half goals from Congolese winger Yannick Bolasie and Johan Cabaye send super Alan Pardew's side up into the top 4 and completely erase the memory of Roger's sojourn to South London. This is Palace's best start to a top flight season since 1990-1991. They finished third that season. Before the Premier League, Rog.
They were majestic. I could have watched Wilfred Zaha terrorise Chris Brunt in slow motion for hours. What a story Alan Pardew's team have been this season. They'd lack a top-flight finisher, but they've won 15 Premier League games in calendar year 2015. Only Arsenal and Manchester City have won more. We've got the team owner, Steve Parish, coming into the panic room next week.
Colt's old boy.
Oh, he's a fantastic bloke. Local boy, made good. It's a feel-good footballing story. He's a very, very smart, kind of visionary football owner. If any of you have got questions for that bloke, send them our way. We'll be dropping a special pod next week. Can't wait.
Leicester City 2, Norwich 1, Rog. Another great story, an unbelievable story. This didn't even make the rundown for most TV shows covering the Premier League this weekend. Goals from the Premier League leading scorer, Rog, Jamie Vardy, and Jeff Schlupp moved the Foxes up to fifth. They are one of only 3 teams with only 1 loss. Spurs and mighty, mighty Everton are the others.
Jamie Vardy now scored 8 goals in his last 9 Premier League games, 11 league goals in 2015, twice as many as his England colleague. Yes, his England colleague, Wayne Rooney. But the star of this game, French-born Malian N'Golo Kante. What a monstrous presence at the heart of Leicester's midfield. He is impregnable. What a signing by Claudio Ranieri.
Yeah. The Tinkerman having a great return season to the Premier League, Rog. Aston Villa 0, sexy Stoke 1. A goal from man-bun poster boy Marko Arnautovic gives Stoke its second win on the trot and lifts them to 14th in the table. Tim Sherwood's side, meanwhile, has earned just 1 point since opening day.
My favourite footballing story this week, Bojan Krkic, the Stoke star back from cruciate ligament injury. He told The Independent that he won Stoke City's Best Baker competition with his triple-layer strawberry and cream sponge cake. He told the writer, the other players have girlfriends living with them who do the cooking. I'm here, so I have to cook for myself. Could he be any more adorable?
So adorable.
What was your go-to dish, David?
Pasta Mikey was always my go-to dish when I was at college. Was pasta in a cream sauce with bacon and peas, Rog. Now, what is my go-to dish? I love grilling fish in en croûte. I love doing that. It's one of my favourite things.
I'm a soup specialist.
You are?
Yeah. It's the only thing I can make.
Out of a can?
No, I'm amazing at all kinds of soups. It's just like in the same way as Dikembe Mutombo was just a great, pure shot blocker. Soups. That's all I can do.
I love it. Bournemouth 1, Watford 1. A mixed day for former Wilmington hammerhead Glenn Murray, Rog, who put the Cherries ahead and then missed what would have been the winning penalty in the 85th minute. Another goal for Watford's Odion Ighalo. The Nigerian has 5 this season, Rog, having a great season.
Bournemouth and Watford, according to @Clay Biggington, battle it out in the teams with terrible crest derby. He said these are logos that both need to be relegated. I'm feeling for Bournemouth. 23 million of summer signings. Tyrone Mings, Max Gradel gone. Their top scorer, Callum Wilson, now out for the season with cruciate ligament injury. Captain Tommy Elphick out for a month. Here, they scored through champion ball denier Glenn Murray after a horrific goalkeeper mishap, and then Murray missed a penalty that would have got them 3 points. These are the kind of margins, Davo, that can haunt you come the end of the season. # up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries, Rog, and up the Von Traps. A massive game this Saturday in Pasadena, California, as the US men's national team takes on Mexico at the Rose Bowl in front of more than 90,000. How am I not staying to this? At stake, a place in the 2017 Confederations Cup in Russia.
After a rocky period of tweaking by Jurgen, this squad that he's chosen, soaked with experience. Kyle Beckerman's back, Chris Wando's back, and so is Graham Zusi. Huge questions about who'll play at centre-back, which midfielder will play in front of them, how will they connect Josie to the play, and a huge amount depending again on the role with which Michael Bradley is tasked. They're playing against a Mexico side that's in a similar state of organisational disarray, with a new coach coming in, a glut of injuries. They're also paying for, Davo, in my estimation, it's fairly a meaningless accomplishment rationally.
Yeah.
When you strip the emotion of a Mexico-USA game, Confederations Cup qualification, Davo, the teams that have done well recently in it, Spain and Italy, were fantastic last time. They were dreadful at the World Cup proper. Brazil, the winners, were lulled into a false sense of destiny. I'd honestly prefer my players have a rest for the summer rather than play that one out. But the big story is the sword of Damocles, the footballing sword of Damocles that hangs over Jurgen in the eyes of many who cover US soccer. His tinkering, his Gold Cup failure, his unwillingness to admit any kind of fault has frayed the patience of many in the media. Many fans. Landon Donovan said, Jurgen said he wants our players to feel pressure. If he wants to hold all the players to that standard, then he's got to be held to that standard too, Davo. What do you make of it all?
You definitely feel like all the forces around the team, and maybe some within them, are looking at this as almost a sort of the ultimate proving ground or failing ground for Jurgen Brodge. I think that he can only set out players he has. I thought they did amazingly at the World Cup. I think Jurgen has done a phenomenal job with this team. It sort of has parallel to the Liverpool thing with Brodge, is how great can the US team be so quickly? It's like in the same way that the Liverpool manager has to manage Liverpool's past as well as their present, the US men's national team manager, now with so much interest in the game here, has to almost manage their future reputation as well as their present. I think it's very tough. It's going to be so hot. It's going to be so hot in Pasadena this weekend, Rog. It's going to be in the mid-90s at game time. I'm just terrified about this game.
Give me Buffalo or give me death. I'll say about Jurgen, his tenure, it's like an optical illusion. Do you see an old hag or a beautiful milkmaid when you look at the image? Do you look at the Brazil beatdown or the friendly Netherlands and Germany wins back in June? Do you see that he's been the most successful coach statistically in US men's national team history? Or do you see a US team that's stuck in neutral? How much does emerging from one of the toughest groups at the World Cup buy you? And I wonder how much Jurgen wishes, David, that he had more key games like European teams do with European qualifying. Kind of feel that this one, that doesn't mean that much rationally other than it's against a great rival, Mexico. It feels like a referendum on the direction of the team. And the game's too close to call, I'll say. I played it 20 times on FIFA. And when I play the USA, we always lose. When I play Mexico, the US always win. But as an Evertonian, in dark times going to the game, there was always a moment before kickoff when whatever darkness had plagued us as fans during the week into the game, it would evaporate. And someone in the terraces would shout out, "Get behind the lads! Get behind the lads, Davo." And what I hope is that for 90 minutes, the team, the fans, the coaches, they get behind the lads.
Absolutely, Rog. Well, just minutes before we recorded this, you spoke with one of the players, the starting right back for Sunderland, DeAndre Yedlin.
Our guest today is one of the most exciting young American players in European football after a meteoric rise from the University Akron Zips to the Seattle Sounders starting 11. He caught the eye of clubs across the globe at the 2014 World Cup. This past weekend, he made his first Premier League start, going an entire 90 for Sunderland in their 2-2 draw of West Ham. This Saturday, he and the rest of the US men's national team will be in epic, seismic, civilization-ending action against Mexico in the Rose Bowl. We welcome back to the pod the one and only Mr. DeAndre Yedlin.
Hello, how are you doing?
Oh, good now. I've got to say, mazel tov. We loved watching you burn up and down the flank at the Stadium of Light.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You've played MLS. You've played Premier League. How big is the jump from one to the other?
It's a big jump. It's definitely a big jump. I think, Premier League, it's a league that's very physically demanding. I mean, so is MLS, but, on top of that, everybody is incredibly technical. So, it's a very tough league and a tough league to get used to. But, I think once you settle in there, then obviously once your confidence is up, once you're playing a little bit, it's the best league in the world for me.
Well, what's the most important lesson you'd say you've learned from your time in England?
To be patient. You know what I mean? Obviously, I didn't play a ton at Tottenham, and I had to grind every day, do what I could every day to keep myself positive, keep myself going, and stay patient. And now, I got a loan move, obviously, to Sunderland, and obviously started my first Premier League game a few days ago. So yeah, things are starting to turn around a little bit now. Obviously now we have the situation with a new coach, so we don't know who that's going to be. But nothing changes from my approach. I'm still going to go in every day and try to prove myself.
We're leading the call over here for you to be installed as player manager, DeAndre.
Yeah, that would be interesting at 22.
How do you experience it as a player? It's a proud club, Sunderland. Time of transition, as you say, the upheaval. Do you see it as a time of uncertainty? You've just proven yourself to Dick Advocat, and now he's gone. Or do you see it as a time of opportunity for you?
No, I see it as a time of opportunity. I mean, it's a clean slate. It's a nobody's ahead of anybody else. So obviously, I know if I go in and I play to my potential and prove what I can do, then I'll be all right.
Let's talk about the Mexico game. I mean, you've travelled from Sunderland to California, a journey that used to take 27 days by package steamer. How would you describe your emotions on the flight over?
Yeah, it's just obviously I was excited to see a little bit of sun. I was excited to get here, excited to see the guys. It's always good to get back with the guys, and it's just it's a great game to look forward to, and everybody's excited for it.
There's been something a tiny little bit apocalyptic about the build-up from a media perspective, but we know from talking to the US women this summer, early on, when their team was getting battered by the US media, all of them say the mood inside their camp, inside their bubble, was so different to how it was being reported.
Yeah.
How would you describe the mood of the guys inside the US men's national team bubble right now?
I think everybody's just, we're all very positive. I mean, I think in the last year, we haven't had the best run of games. We've had some games, obviously Holland, Germany, I think, are the ones that I think highlight, that last year. But, the last year hasn't been the very best. And I think, we want to prove something. So we're all ready to prove something. And obviously, we're playing for a spot in Confederations Cup, which is a huge tournament. So, we're all very ready, we're all very prepared, but we know they are as well, so we know it's going to be a challenge.
Jurgen Klinsmann told the media, he said, this game, this playoff represents, quote, an opportunity for the players that will not come back anymore in your career. It will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
He said the players can be excited about it, always look back and say, I was there that special day. You've played twice against Mexico. They're always big games.
Right.
What about this to you as a player feels different, if anything?
I think just the fact that we're playing for a trophy. I mean, in the two games that I've played against Mexico, they've both been friendlies. So for me, we're playing for a trophy. We're playing for a spot in Confederations Cup, and I think the atmosphere is going to be even bigger. I was expecting 90,000, but they're expecting also the most U.S. fans. Show up at a game, and I'm sure we'll still be outnumbered by Mexican fans, but there's going to be a lot of U.S. fans there as well. So we know the support's going to be there, and it's just going to be a very exciting game. And like I said, we're playing for a trophy, so it doesn't get better than that.
Casey Keller, the great Casey Keller, recently installed in the Hall of Fame, told ESPN Jeff Carlisle in a great piece he wrote about the Mexican rivalry. He said playing against Mexico in the LA Coliseum was far more intimidating than playing in Azteca. He said it was really bad, much worse, across the board, nasty, really nasty. He said you come in from the tunnel and you're just getting tons of crap thrown at you, spat at. It's really bad. He said what makes it even more memorable is you're supposed to be the home team.
Yeah.
How are you preparing for that mentally, DeAndre?
I think the same way we prepare for any game. That's the thing. We can't overlook anything. It really is another game. Obviously there's more at stake to this one, but it is just another game. I think if you prepare any differently, then you start to overthink things, and that's when things start to go wrong.
Well, what makes it so big for you? Is it because of the Confederations Cup place? Is it because of the recent run of bad form, the games against Peru and Brazil, and a chance to correct that? Or is it because it's just against Mexico?
I think it's all of those kind of thrown into a snowball. It's everything combined. It's everything that you said. It's just a build up, and it's something we're ready for.
Who's your roommate, DeAndre?
I'm actually roomed with DeMarcus Beasley, Clint Dempsey, and Tim Howard.
That is an enormous room. That's the penthouse bachelor pad, that.
I'm with the old group. We're actually in villas, so we have like little houses, kind of.
The Dempseys, the Bradleys, the Tim Howards, the DeMarcuses. What's their message as they're trying to prepare the younger ones?
I think just to prepare for it like any other game. I mean, it really is just another game. Obviously, in the eyes of everybody else, in the eyes of all the fans and stuff, it's a bigger game. But like I said earlier, I think if you prepare for it other than any other game, then you're going to get punished for it.
When you put your head on the pillow at night in your villa, I imagine you're tucked in near DeMarcus and Tim and Clint. Do you dream dreams about the Mexico game?
I don't. It depends. Usually, actually, if I fall asleep thinking about it, then there'll be something to have to do with it in my dream, but it might not directly relate to the Mexico game. But there's some kind of correlation there.
Is that something? Is it good? Is it you?
It's good for me. I like to kind of vision stuff like that, and see myself doing things well before the actual game comes.
I mean, I'm talking to a man who has Carpe Diem, the words Carpe Diem, tattooed on his lower back. So I've got a feeling how you're going to answer this one. Can you let me know what you think is going to happen Saturday night, DeAndre?
Well, I mean, of course, I think we're going to win. I think if you go in with any other attitude, then, it's wrong. We have to go in. We have to, respect them, but we can't respect them too much.
From your mouth to the football gods ear, one quick question from one of our GFOP listeners at Abel Wilring, an important, burning, investigative question which is going to put you on your toes, DeAndre. He wants to know, do the Premier League teams keep high-end hairstylists on payroll, or do the guys with the best haircuts bring in their own stylist?
No, the guys with the best haircuts bring in their own stylist. That's how it is. I mean, it's not so hard because England's obviously not as big of a country as the United States, so you can have a guy take the train up from London to Sunderland to get a cut. It's not too bad. So you can usually find the best hairdressers in the country. When
you were playing on Spurs with the likes of Lamela and Chadley and your hairstyle, I always imagined it was Pochettino. It was just getting out the shaver in the locker room. You've just blown one myth for me, one of my dreams. All I can say is, DeAndre, all of our GFOPs will be standing behind you. Please pass on our best to all the gents in camp. We wish you a magical night on Saturday. And for you, everything you deserve upon your return to England. Godspeed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Amazing stuff, Rog.
What a fantastic, articulate bloke, David.
Yeah, well, US-Mexico kicks off at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 Pacific, Saturday on Fox Sports 1.
And while we're talking about the US men's national team, in happy news, under-23 team, Mazel Tov, fantastic performances in Olympic qualifying. They've made the CONCACAF semi-finals. Stanford Messi, Jordan Morris, 3 fantastic goals. I've loved watching Jerome Kieswetter, the Berlin-born striker from Stuttgart, who's also chipped in 3 goals. Fantastic stuff.
In MLS, Rog, a heartbreaking loss at DC United has virtually eliminated NYCFC from the playoffs after going ahead through a first-minute Frank Lampard goal. NYCFC gave up 2 goals, including one in the 92nd minute.
And their coach, Jason Kreis, said to the press afterwards, I said to myself, you can score too early. MLS performance of the week. Former MLS goalkeeper turned NFL kicker Josh Lambo kicked a game-winning field goal for the Chargers with no time left. He was 3 for 3 in field goals. God love Josh Lambo. That is one of the footballing stories of my fall.
And in the NWSL, congratulations to FC Kansas City, who won their second straight NWSL title last week, beating the Seattle Reign 1-0 in Portland. US women's national team and FCKC midfielder Lauren Holiday ends her club career with some style. Rog.
Oh, it was GFOP Heather O'Reilly who made a remarkable run and pinpoint cross onto the head of Amy Rodriguez for the winner. Thrill for her and all at NWSL, which we hope will continue to go from strength to strength, and to have Heather, along with Ali Krieger and Becky Sauerbrunn, who also was a winner in the final, Davo, come to BlazerCon.
ManyBlazers.com for all ticket details. Big news from Feastland last week, Rog. And more developments today, where sponsors McDonald's and Coca-Cola called for everyone's favourite, ever benevolent dictator, Sepp Blatter, to step down immediately.
Dave, in an apparently coordinated move, Coke, Visa, McDonald's, Budweiser on Friday, they all said, this is hilarious to me, they've just realised Blatter's, quote, continued presence as FIFA president was holding back reform efforts and he must go. They were reacting to the US Department of Justice charging 14 people. He waited, he didn't respond. Sepp Blatter, when they asked him, I think he was waiting to hear what Olive Garden had to say on the matter before he made his decision. I do find it so funny that these companies make a big moral stance now. I mean, where was Ronald McDonald when Qatar and Russia went down? But talk about corrupt horse in an immoral stable and door bolting. We had a brief, amazing standoff where Blatter, they'd said, had to resign, and then they kind of crapped it because we didn't know what they'd do to actually make it happen. But even as we pod, Davo, it's been announced literally right now, Twitter is blowing up. The BBC have just announced that an ethics committee at FIFA have suspended Sepp Blatter for 90 days. There's a lot of talk that Michel Platini, who has also got himself absolutely enmeshed in the intrigue, will also go. The great Marina Hyde of The Guardian wrote that if Michel Platini was to be Blatter's successor, it would be the most obvious continuity candidate since Yuri Andropov.
Wow, who's going to be left to run the place, Rog?
Hopefully Lalas.
Yeah, we will see. Talking of dictatorship, not so benevolent. We'll see, Rog. Okay, our first Raven is from Carlos Maycott. I find myself in what may be an unsolvable dilemma. I've lived in the United States for 13 years and hope to remain here for at least twice that amount, if not more. I was, however, born and raised in Mexico. As such, my allegiance and fealty, good word, to the Mexican national team runs as deep as my contempt and disdain for the US men's national team. It's as deep as the rift between Liverpool-Everton, England-Argentina, and Simon and Garfunkel. I've tried to purge myself of schadenfreude when the US lose and sour grapes when they win. I love America and everything it stands for. I actually am a huge fan of the Khaleesi's of the US women's national team. It's only the bitter rivalry that prevents me from rooting for the men as well. Moreover, I want the US to do well, if only to encourage the growth of football in America. I'd love to join the crowds at bars and in the plazas during American soccer games. Obviously, I will always root for Mexico, but I intellectually know that I should root for the US as well. But I can't. I hunker in my apartment during games because I know at the moment of truth, my heart of hearts reveals my true feelings. I can't bottle them up. I can't tamp them down. They're there, and they will not be ignored. So I turn to you, as you two seem to have managed to bury any post-colonial resentment Britain may have ever had against its rebellious child. What am I to do? Am I cursed to wander the United States alone amongst the masses? Am I doomed to sit in my living room in a green shirt while my family surrounds me in white? Or should I just let go and embrace the darkness, play the heel, and become the villain of my own story? Great email. Thank you for that.
What a story, Carlos. What a predicament. Your two identities at war with themselves. I love it. I mean, to me, you are what you are, Carlos. Some things can change. Some things you can't change. Stay true to yourself, mate. It's a great quote that was attributed to French Nobel Prize-winning author André Gide. He said, it's better to be hated for what you are than to be loved for what you are not. And so I hope you find a wife, Carlos. I hope you have loads and loads and loads of children. And I wish upon you many nights where you sit there in abject misery as your family chant Dos a Cero with a giddying delight baiting you over and over and over.
It's tough. How do you deal, like, in this sort of modern, global economy? How do we deal with supporting two national teams? You support two national teams, Rog. You've got the US, you have Israel. It's very tough to support two teams at once. I've been amazed when I've seen USMNT national team games over the years, and fans of both Mexico and the United States always wearing jerseys that are one part each. The winner of the coveted Guinness Men in Blazers Poet, Philosopher, Soccer Scribe Raven of the Week is Emma Witt. Rog, I need your help. I've recently moved to a new state and a new job, and I've made some new friends, one of whom has informed me that now I have my feet underneath me, I need to start dating. She's given me the ins and outs on a number of sites to try, but none seem right. Can you start a dating site for GFOPs to help me out? None of the current sites have places for me to let prospective mates know that I'm a blue person looking for another blue, or maybe a green or some other colour, but sceptical about red. How do you raise the kids in such a broken home? There are no spots for me to describe my ideal mate as a Jurgen Klopp type, but with Tony Pulis' fashion sense and Michael's eternal optimism. While I wait for you to get the GFOP dating site up and running, I have other questions. What do I do with the Diego Costa jersey I bought before the season started? I know not to wear it or any jersey on dates or in any profile pic because Roger's wife has proclaimed it will add 10 pounds in 20 years. I like wearing it kind of ironically, but I'm suspicious of a man who would find such a jersey attractive. Would guys find it a turn-off if I just wear my Hibernian hoodie and insist all first-date conversations focus on Jerry Baker and how she should be in the US Soccer Hall of Fame? What if a guy asks me why I'm wearing a Von Trapp scarf? Can I just get up and leave the date? Seriously, what advice do you have for the football-loving single ladies? I'd sooner die alone than go on a date with someone who thinks soccer is a game for commies and ethnic schoolgirls. That's brilliant. That's so good. God, could we do a GFOP dating site? The liability would be horrible. I've met a lot of our GFOPs, Rog.
Emma, I think you should just meet Carlos Maycott, who wrote the first Raven. And have a lifetime mocking him. I've no dating advice. Absolutely none. You should never take any dating advice off me. But I do hope you find someone with the looks of Brad Evans or Romelu Lukaku, the values of Stephen Naismith, and the love poetry of Wayne Rooney.
That would be an amazing combination. Rod, we should dummy up what that man would look like by combining all those faces.
I think probably Augustus Waters, David. That's what I imagine him as.
Our Adidas Jog Tag Contest. As we mentioned on the pod 2 weeks ago, we're working with the GFOPs at Adidas to design an official Men in Blazers football jersey. One of the last remaining details is the Jog Tag. That's the little piece of material at the bottom of the jersey. We asked you to submit your Jog Tag designs with the promise that one would go on the MIB jersey. Today, we're going to announce the 3 finalists, including the winner, Rog. The first comes from Gary Holmes, at Gary Fick on Twitter. His Courage Jog Tag, just beautiful, simple design. In second place, this is brilliant, so nearly won, Rog, from Jane Silver. It's almost a takeoff on the Harris Tweed logo, hand-woven to tweed, dry Herrera tweed, 100% crap. I love that, it's so good. But the winner, because just a clever design, a lot of elements, Enoch Morishima, what a name, from the crap part of Kobe, Japan. His raven on a soccer ball, non in fascium below it, not in the face. That bird is pooping over a diagonal stripe with the words GFOP below the soccer ball. That will look beautiful as the Jog Tag. Congratulations, Enoch. Thanks for all of your entries.
Cannot wait for that jersey, which we believe is going to be the first ever tweed football jersey to take the field for the Men in Blazers national team, thanks to Adidas.
We're going to post all of these on our website, Rog, and you can expect the jerseys on sale around the holidays. Okay, your international break weekend looks like this, courtesy of Mini USA. That Mini that saved my life this morning, Rog, literally saved my life. As we mentioned, Rog, the United States men's national team versus Mexico, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday on Fox Sports 1. And some tasty Euro qualifiers this weekend, Rog. Wales have got a chance to qualify for their first major tournament since 1958, before even I was born, Rog. They need a point at Bosnia and Herzegovina on Saturday. That game is on ESPN Deportes and ESPN3 at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. If they don't get it Saturday, Wales can still qualify by earning a point against Andorra in Cardiff next Tuesday. And another country on the brink of qualifying, Northern Ireland, Rog. They host Greece Thursday and play Finland away Sunday at noon Eastern Time on Fox Sports 1. A win in either game would clinch qualifying for a major tournament for the first time since 1986. There are many ways to connect connect to us. One is through our Amazon Emporium, which helps keep the show going. Anytime you go on Amazon Prime, or just kick off the Emporium page, and MIB gets a tiny percentage that allows us to cover the cost of creating the show. What are you putting in the Emporium this week, Rogelio?
A book, an amazing book. Promised You a Miracle, UK 80 to 82 by Andy Beckett. A social history of the era in which I, pre-bar mitzvah, came of age. It was a time when, for good or for bad, Britain was revolutionised by Margaret Bloody Thatcher. Northerners would say she destroyed the country. Many Southerners would say that thrown off the shackles of traditional life and modernised the country, became a bustling three-market hubbub of entrepreneurialism that kind of created the new London. This book looks at the tumult of the Falklands, Lady Diana, England's sporting rise and quick decline, and the loosening of the nation's old strictures. Told without nostalgia, is a remarkable opportunity to examine how, for richer or for poorer, the nation is the way it is today. I'd say it's a must-read for any Anglophiles, or for those who, like me, in many ways still live in the 1980s.
Oh, brilliant, Rog. Well, we're both offering books on Britain in our own ways. I'm going to put in the book I quoted earlier, Bill Bryson, The Road to Little Dribbling, Adventures of an American in Britain. This is his sequel to Notes from a Small Island, book he wrote about motoring around Britain in 1995 before he left in the US. This is the sequel. He made the same trip again, driving around the country, and has written The Road to Little Dribbling.
I cannot wait to read that book too, David.
Okay, Rog, you can now watch entire episodes of our crap TV show, on NBC Sports Live Extra, Apple TV and Roku. It's also up on our website, meninblazers.com, also on meninblazers.com, a place to sign up for our newsletter, The Raven, which we produce with our partner Guinness. Check out our Spotify account, men_in_blazers. We just posted a BlazerCon playlist, meninblazers.wikispaces.com. That's a wonder of the modern world. Twitter, you can follow us there, at Embassy Davies, at Rog Bennett, at meninblazers. On Instagram, at meninblazers, at Embassy_Davies. We've got a Facebook too. We've got a subreddit, meninblazers.reddit.com, maintained by GFOPs at Shay Calvin and Alex. Please send your ravens to the crap part of Soho. You can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. We're going to have to talk about the dating website, Rog, and whether that's something we can do. I sort of like the idea.
It's a
Vendapunk.
terrible idea. War Pig!
Who wants to sex Matumbo?
Explosion!
Courage.
Take that, Gloria!
Is that your analysis?
Corduroy is coming.
Abrigado, Rock.